Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social Podcast. It's been a blast. The season, or at least the World Cup, has gone past so quickly. It feels just like yesterday that we sat here recording about the first round in Waterloo, but we are already here, Besançon, the final round of the World Cup, and with me here to discuss that is Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here for 13 out of 14 World Cups. Real dedication. Appreciate it a lot. Let's go and talk about the men's race here in Besançon. It was a predicted scenario. Mathieu van der Poel was the big favorite going into this race, and he had the best start. He was leading the peloton, but as he had announced prior to the race, he would be taking it easy to allow his brother, David van der Poel, who was potentially riding his final race here, have a bit of a chance to get into the race. Van der Poel took it easy. David couldn't benefit from that, but it led to a peloton cross in the first 25 minutes of the race. Then Van der Poel attacked on the gravel climb and he dropped the rest. Nobody could follow him. It was as simple as that. One attack, he was gone, and he started to build his lead until it eventually went towards 1 minute. From there on, we focused on the battle behind him. Van der Poel would not be in danger anymore. But the battle for second was super entertaining. There was a group of around 8-9 riders fighting for those two remaining spots on the podium, and it looked a lot like a road race. Sweeck attacked from the back of the group sometimes. Vanterini was trying to drop them. Vanterini did a lot of work, but ultimately in the final lap we saw that Iserbyt had something left in the tank. He placed a long attack and basically dropped everyone except Sweeck. Sweeck was able to bridge the gap on the gravelled climb and looked to be good for at least the podium. But that was without Iserbyt having a mechanical. Iserbyt had a mechanical and therefore dropped back to 10th. Sweeck therefore could easily take second, but that led a new spot of the podium opening up. And there was a heavy battle for that. Joris Nieuwenhuis, who was riding a strong race, had a small gap, but he was already completely dead. And Vanterini, who started the final lap as last out of that group of 8 riders for the remaining podium positions, went all out. He came super close, but ultimately on the short final straight could not pass Nieuwenhuis. And I have to say that despite being a bit sad that Vanterini didn't get a podium, Nieuwenhuis definitely deserved his first podium of the season because he had a very good season. Then on to the race above Van der Poel Issam. It's hardly a surprise that he wins, but I hope for all the other riders that they did not catch a cold with the World Championships next weekend because, wow, that was one attack.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the French fans were definitely making some noise, but I think you could maybe hear an engine go around in that attack. It was, very Van der Poel-esque the way he went, and that is something that we know he is able to do, and I think that at the moment he is physically in good shape. The attack and also what he did after that attack, maintaining the gap, without really pushing that much. I think that overall his race was very strong, and now we can go on with the speculation in the preview podcast, but can start with the speculation who is going to be better, Van der Poel or Van Aert. But from what we have seen this weekend is that both guys are physically at the moment in very good shape, and they are ready to perform well in next week.
Yeah, exactly. This is what you want to see the week before the World Championships. You want to put in a good ride, gain confidence, especially after the season Van der Poel had. They stated that they did not purposely dodge Wout van Aert. They made this plan earlier. They were going to come here with almost the entire team after they did the Benidorm World Cup and the training camp near there. So you just need to take the win here. If you're not going to take the win here as Van der Poel, something will have gone wrong, and you don't want any signs of back pain or any other issues. And he didn't have them. He looked pretty good on the bike today. He looked comfortable. I thought he looked pretty lively, especially on this gravelled climb, standing on the pedals every single lap, pacing himself there. It looked good, but as you say, Wout van Aert yesterday also looked absolutely fine. It's going to be interesting. I will gather some thoughts on who I think will be the favorite, so we can discuss that in the preview podcast. But it's definitely the impression you want to make, and Van der Poel did what he wanted to do, and I think we can say the same for Eli Iserbyt. Okay, 10th, but without that mechanical, he would have been second, and it looked pretty good.
Yeah, a shame for Iserbyt. I think that he definitely deserved that second spot on the podium. He was the one that saw Van der Poel attack and leave the others behind. Then after that, he kind of knew that it was going to be a race for second. I wouldn't say that he had it in the bag, but definitely with his attack last lap, leading them out, it was he was in a very good spot to take second. But yeah, the mechanicals is something that we know in cyclocross is it can happen, and we have seen it sometimes with some bikes that it's a bit difficult here with the hills. It's very fast, so you might end up with some issues changing gears, and I think that didn't help Iserbyt in the end. And well, for him, I think the feeling is good, and he should just take that good feeling to next week and hope for an okay weather, because I think on a fast course, Iserbyt is definitely, he has a very good shot of getting a podium.
Yeah, if the course is fast, he would be my third favorite, seen especially his ride in Benidorm, which was even stronger than today. But we don't know. The weather forecast is currently saying rain, and then we might be looking again at Michael van Toerenhout. But who knows? We'll keep that speculation for the preview podcast. Sweeck today also not making a bad impression, but he didn't make a very great impression either, because he was hanging on the back of that group, looked to be struggling. Okay, he had that one attack in the midway point of the race, and that looked okay, but then again, back to sitting at the back. But I guess on a fast course like this, he also benefited from that because he saved a lot of energy and ultimately had that left in the tank in the final lap, unlike a rider like Vanturini, who did way too much work throughout the entire race and ultimately paid for that, because if he had had a bit more left in the tank, he could have easily been fighting for the podium even without that mechanical of Eli Iserbyt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for Sweeck, it reminds me a little bit of that race in Dublin, where Sweeck was at the front for a moment and then was a little bit more at the back, and then we had that moment where we were thinking that Sweeck was not going to play for the podium, and there he was again. So I think Sweeck kind of realized how the race would play out, and realized that it was going to be very difficult to open a gap. Only for Van der Poel it would be possible to ride away, and I think that he kind of already knew that it was going to be a race from second, especially after what happened to him at the start of the race and to some others, and from there he kind of knew that it was okay to sit at the back. It will cost you a little bit of energy, but you can also save quite some energy as well. And he was definitely going for that third spot when Iserbyt attacked, and then the luck was on his side. Iserbyt had his moment, and Sweeck could snatch second. And if you look at the race of Vanturini, it's a bit of a shame that he wasn't able to get a podium in front of home crowd in his own country. But I think that overall, at the end of the race, he sounded very very happy with his result, and he tried to be a little bit more at the front to stay out of trouble, which in a way is definitely true, but it also means that it might cost you a little bit more energy, and maybe energy that could have potentially helped him a little bit more in the later part of the race and to secure that third spot. But Nieuwenhuis on the third spot is also very, very good, and he deserves it, especially if you look at his season, where he came from and the way he rode this season. It's definitely a reward the way he has been riding that third spot.
Oh yeah, for sure. Nieuwenhuis deserves it, and Vanturini was happy with his result, and I can understand that, since it was by far his best result of the season. Out of the big races, it's the first time he breaks into the top 10 just in time before Worlds. Last year we saw a similar trend. He rode an even smaller cross campaign then, but only the weekend before in Hamme and Hogerheide he showed his form. I recall him missing the top 10 in Hogerheide due to a crash, but before that it was not that good either. Even in Flamanville still he was outside of the top 10, and then at Worlds he ends 5th. Okay, of course, it's a course that suited him, and today as well, but especially as this course suited him, I think he was just racing like an idiot today. I would expect more from a rider who has a lot of experience, not only in cross but also on the road. Today was an old school cross in a way, because it was a wide course, a typical French course, wide, had natural elevation but nothing too serious, some barriers, some stairs, and above all, it was not completely filled with 180-degree corners to please the sponsors. I like this type of course, and it reminds me a lot of the courses that were almost the standard in the early 2000s. And if it's dry, you get more grouped racing. If it's not dry and it's muddy, you get a race like you had last year, and that is also cross. But when the surface is like this, you just can't do what Vanterini was doing. You can't take the lead at the end of lap 1, pace super hard for 3 laps. Van der Poel is allowing the other riders to play in his playground. He, as you say, is the only rider that can break away. But then after that, in the chase, Vanterini was still doing a lot of work. It's not just positioning, it was just a waste of energy. You can't race like this. It's like on the road if you're in the Tour of Flanders breakaway, and for the final 60 kilometers, you drag along 5-6 riders in your wheel, and you maybe drop 1 or 2 on the Oude Kwaremond and the Paterberg, but then in the end they will come and smoke you in the sprint, and that's exactly what happened with Vanterini. And if you race like that, you don't deserve the podium. And somebody like Nieuwenhuis, who raced way smarter after such a season, then, as you say, deserves the podium more, because not only for a season, I mean, Vanterini would also deserve it if he got it, but you just need to be smart, and if you can't play it smart, even such a final lap won't save you, because credit to Vanterini for that final lap, going into it as last basically from that leading group. If you rewatch it, you can see in the background him making some quite tasty dive bombs to gain positions. So, I mean, it's not to roast Vanterini. I respect him. I would have loved to see him on the podium, but he should have been smarter today.
Personally, I think that, for example, Kuhn was definitely one of the riders that was a little bit more conservative. I think that his attack in the penultimate lap was maybe a bit too ambitious, and that costed him then in the last lap, and that might have also cost him in terms of trying to get a top 5. But, you know, the same goes for Laurens Sweeck and also Iserbyt. They were very smart. The moment Van der Poel went, they knew that it was going to be a race for second, and all that energy that you're going to be using to lead the group out is energy that might cost you in the end of the race, especially on a course like this where the margins are very small and it's very difficult actually to make a gap. But at the moment that you are, you know, that the tank is empty, it's very difficult then to get around. And I think that that is, these type of courses are always, they are not fun for the riders, but they are definitely fun for the viewers, because, you know, the racing is a bit closer. And I think that right now it was Iserbyt that ended in 10th, was just shy, I think 1 minute 17 seconds. That is something that you don't see that often in a cyclocross race.
Yeah, I think even for the riders it was fun. It's a different dynamic, and Thomas van der Spiegel gave an interview saying that cross is not only for the Flemish mud and it's for all surfaces, and I very much agree with that. In that same interview, he, by the way, said that London is probably coming to the World Cup for next season, but we'll wait for confirmation. It should be released this week. We'll make a podcast next week after Worlds about that. But back to the racing, I do agree with what you say, and if you look at the gaps, I mean, Van der Poel is 50 seconds ahead, but then from place 2 until place 9, there's 15 seconds separating them, and that is fantastic. It's also, I mean, I already said it, Nieuwenhuis, it's fantastic to see him on the podium, but I will just say it one more time that it's really good to see him up there. I think this is his first podium in a World Cup since that second place in Heus de Zolder, or was it? It was a third place in Heus de Zolder in 2018, and that focus to the road, I think it was a bit of a mistake. He would have been better if he focused on cyclocross, and I'm happy that he is now back fully doing cyclocross, and I'm really curious to see if he can continue to make a bit more progression going into next season, because then it would be very nice to see Nieuwenhuis fight with the likes of Iserbyt, Van Toerenhout, Sweeck and Van der Haar at the beginning of the season. It would be nice to have an extra name in that mix, because those names, we've seen them for quite some years already now, so yeah, would just be nice. Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Van der Poel with the win ahead of Sweeck and Nieuwenhuis. Venturini in 4th ahead of Van de Putte, Kamp and Kuhn. 8th place went to Gerben Kuipers ahead of Boros in 9th, with Eli Iserbyt rounding out the top 10. I think there are 2 riders we need to talk about. First of all, Niels van der Putte. He had a bit of a rough period with the results not really going his way. Couple of times barely or even outside of the top 10 in the Christmas period. Belgian championships were disappointing, but from Benidorm there were definitely signs of improvements with a top 10 place there and now a top 5 here in Besançon.
Yeah, indeed. I think for him, definitely a good result. Maximized it, in my opinion. You know, he was also one of the guys that didn't really pull that much at the front, was following quite well and understood that it was an opportunity for him to get himself within the top 10. And I think with 5th, it's even better because then you get yourself in the top 5. So Van de Putte this season and also last season a little bit, it is, I think, for him, it's a bit of a tendency to have an inconsistent season with very high ups, but also quite some lows, and sometimes it's with circumstances outside of him, but it's a bit typical for Van de Putte. The last 2 seasons he has been scoring well, but then that also follows with a period where he doesn't score that great. So I think for him it's definitely a plus to score a good result just before the Worlds, and that will definitely be very good for a rider like him. It will motivate you, and that will definitely help him out.
Then another performance that must be mentioned is Gerben Kuipers in 8th. A very strong ride by him. He had a terrible start, lost 20 seconds in the first lap, 10 seconds in the lap after. Then was able to put in fast lap times and come back. He paid the price eventually for not having these moments of recuperation, which the riders fighting for 2nd and 3rd did have. Still, 8th place is a very good result, and we have understood that he is on the verge of signing a deal with the Tormans team, the team that arguably needs him the most. So that's the good news for him, and yeah, I'm curious to see if that will eventually work through. For the rest, outside of the top 10, Tom van der Bos ending 13th means that Wout van Aert will need to start the World Championships on row 2. And Marek Konwa, the Polish champion, in 15th. He was close to ending in the top 10 at some point. Ultimately couldn't follow the likes of Kuipers following through the field, so still 15th is a good result for him. Then on to the women's race. In the women's race, Marie Schreiber had the best start, no surprise, but it was also no surprise that the favorite for today, Puk Pieterse, took the lead. Just like in the men's race, racing was pretty compact, but at the end of the start loop, or basically first lap, Puk Pieterse had a mechanical. Her chain dropped and she was 20 seconds down. But as quickly as she dropped down, in the same pace she was back at the front. Within 1 lap she was leading the race again, and it didn't take long for her to attack either. She attacked and dropped the rest and basically was in a comfortable position to take another victory. Van Empel wasn't here. She already secured the victory of the overall classification. Sheila van Anrooy also not here today. She already was secured of a 3rd place, would never have ended 2nd. So that really left Pieterse as main favourite for her to take the victory. Behind that there was a battle between a 777 duo of Van der Heijden and Worst. Ultimately Worst in the final lap managed to distance Van der Heijden and take that 2nd place, with Van der Heijden ending 3rd. So about that win of Pieterse, it just looked so natural and so easy, but it was also not really a massive surprise that she took the win, although the ease with which she returned after that mechanical is always impressive when you see somebody just cut through the field like that and then basically attack almost right away after that as well.
Yeah, and I think what impressed me the most was the fact that she stayed very calm, and there was, I think, for her quite some reason to panic in a way, because it could have influenced the race a little bit more. And especially at that moment, it's definitely not something that you want to have, and you don't foresee things like that. So I think that she handled the situation very well, didn't rush herself. The pace at the front was dropped a little bit. That helped her out also. But I think just overall, it was for her a matter of time to get to the front, and when she eventually got to the front, it was for her also time to then dictate the pace, put the others under pressure. She got the gap, and then for her it was a matter of maintaining the gap, making sure that you don't go too fast, and just finish very strong. And I think she did that. And yesterday we had the confirmation that Van Empel was very good, and today we got the confirmation that Pieters is also in a very good form. So again, in this category as well, we have the two favorites have passed this weekend without any problems, fortunately, and now it's the focus to next week.
Yeah, a lot of parallels with yesterday. Yesterday, double Jumbo win. Today, double Alpecin win. The Alpecin riders confirming that they are definitely in form for the World Championships as well. I really like the interview with the dad of Pieterse during the race. He doesn't really talk all too much, and I've raced against Pieterse, so I have seen him at the races in the youth, and he's such a humble, down-to-earth guy who really rationally views everything. When asked, is it a surprise that Pieterse is able to comfortably win these races when she was 4th or 5th last year, he says, well, no. It's national progression. We expected it, and it would have been disappointing if she wasn't able to fight for wins this season. Last year she was already close. She's young. We know that there's progression, so you come through. About the mechanical, he just stays so calm, and I don't think Pieterse would need it, but this dad would never allow Pieterse to lose contact with earth, and he will keep both feet of Pieterse on the ground, and I don't even think that's needed knowing Pieterse. But if you have any problems, just have a conversation with this man. His calming voice will solve everything for you. So that was really a lovely moment in the race, and I think it was also lovely to see Annemarie Worst end on the podium, because for her it's been a roller coaster season with that infection in her knee, which is a lingering injury, needed to take some rest, up and down, and then to come back second in Besançon. It must be nice for her, and it's a confirmation for her that if everything goes well, she is not out of touching distance for a medal at the World Championships next year.
Absolutely. I think that she can look back on a very, very good race, and Benidorm for her was already not a bad race. It looked good, but it was still nothing special. Today the same, but I think that today was a little improvement over Benidorm, and that is only a good thing. So with the Worlds coming up, it might be a race where she can save her season. But I think that that her reasoning for the performance this season are quite serious, and I just hope for her that she can actually recover from it very well and see if she's able to get back to a level that she could be achieving. I think because Worst normally has the potential to be fighting for podiums over a season, and it was just not possible with the injury that she had. So we hope that that after the World she can find a solution with an operation, and from there on see how it will develop from there.
Yeah, I just said next year, but I of course mean next week in Hoogerheide, where she definitely is not without a shot at the medal. I mean, I would probably guess that Alvarado and Brandt are a bit better, but again, it's a World Championship, a lot can happen. And the same goes for Van der Heijden. She was actually infected by COVID in the end of the Christmas period, needed to withdraw from the Dutch National Championships because she wasn't really properly recovered from that. But then after the training camp, things are in an upwards trend. Camille van den Berg said that 12th place in Benidorm was already promising. And then 3rd in Besançon is for Van den Berg a confirmation that his poulain, Van der Heijden, is on the right trajectory towards the World Championships next week. If we look at the entire top 10 then, we see that there are quite some non-Dutch flags, which is nice to see. Behind the Dutch podium of Pieterse, Worst and Van der Heijden, all podiums this season of the World Cup have been all Dutch. We see a 4th place for Zoe Backstedt, ahead of Catablanca Vash, then Marie Schreiber in 6th, ahead of Manon Bakker, then Denise Betsema in 8th, Helene Clauzel in 9th, with Marion Norbert-Ribeiro rounding out the top 10 in 10th. So I think there's a couple of riders that we need to discuss here. I think, of course, Backstedt, 4th place, is a good result. It's the same as her best result ever in the World Cup. She equals that 4th place of Gavre. I do rate that a bit higher due to the start list quality there, but again, a 4th place today is a good result for her.
Definitely, it was today a very strong outing from Bakstedt, and it was, I would say, a bit painful, but we kind of know that she struggles a little bit technically in the corners. It's not, when I say struggle technically a little bit, doesn't mean that she's not able to handle a bike. If I would follow her on my bike in the through corners, I will be losing 2 seconds on her. But I think that compared to some of the women, she can lose out a little bit. And if you lose every corner 3 to 5 tenths or even a second, it will add up. And that was visible today a little bit. I think that she was very strong, and it would have been a different race for her if she actually was able to make the connection with the two from 777. And from there on, it was, when you're in the wheels, the racing will be different, the dynamic can be different, and then you might end up in a situation where you can fight for a podium in such a race. But it didn't go that way, and nevertheless, the result was still impressive, and it was a very good outing from her.
Yeah, definitely. Technically, it was not perfect, but again, I think she can be happy. There's still room for improvement. She's in the hands of Dieter van Toerenhout. I think that's a capable coach who can really help her learn the tips and tricks of cross, and that is helping her. I think it also benefited Honsinger, who unfortunately needed to withdraw after a crash in the start section, but tough season for Honsinger. But again, I think on the fast courses, she has improved. If we look who end behind Bakstedt, Vash and Schreiber, I think Vash rode a pretty anonymous race. She should normally have been able to follow Bakstedt, but as we know, Vash has been sick around the Hungarian National Championships, had another bug during the Christmas period. I don't expect all too much from Vash at Worlds. I will once again say that I'm not going to go all in on saying, well, Vash, it's a bit of a flop. SD Works is terrible for her, but I will wait for the upcoming road season. I mean, it is perfectly possible that these bugs are affecting her and that on the road season she will be strong again. But if this road season is again disappointing, then I think it's fair that we start putting question marks about that transfer to SD Works. I hope that Mari Schreiber is not waiting the same destiny, because she's moving to SD Works after this cross season as well. But for her, I was relatively surprised about the way that she rode her race. We know that she's always fast starter, had a fast first lap. But then, what I was most surprised by was her final lap, because she was in that big group and she rode super smart. She sat in the back of that group that was racing for, I think it was 6th or 5th. And in the final lap, she put in her fastest lap of the race by far. Almost 20 seconds faster than her previous fastest lap. And it was actually the 3rd fastest lap of the race. Or, no, technically the 4th fastest lap, because Petersen put in 2 laps that were faster. But Vorst and Schreiber were the 2nd and 3rd fastest riders out there. So, yeah, really impressive final lap. And 6th is a very good result for her.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like you said, that was kind of the surprise, because we know that Schreiber is a fast starter and is able to, then it's the question of when is the dip coming. But now she was actually able to just, maintain, and I think that 6th place for her was definitely very strong, that she was able to get herself between the likes of Blanca Vash, Bakker and Betsema. So I think that she rode very strong, and very interesting to see how she will develop with that move to SD Works. What they will do with her in terms of the road, and how she will develop over the course of next season in cyclocross with SD Works.
Then finally, I think a rider that will be fuming on her way back to the Netherlands, Manon Bakker, ended 7th. Has had a couple of good results, including a podium in Val di Sole. She's not selected for the World Championships. They selected Aniek van Alphen. Today Van Alphen ended 11th, Bakker in 7th, even ahead of Betsema. I think for Bakker, who was already frustrated with the decision, that will only have added to her frustrations. Like, here, see, I'm better than them, you should have taken me.
it's a difficult situation, and it will only be more difficult for the Dutch selection in terms of the women category. And it is difficult because Van Alphen is maybe not performing at her best at the moment. While you could make the case for Bakker that she has been improving, but they were close over the season. I think there was a statistic from Gerben de Knecht where he said that Van Alphen finished, like, I don't know, it was 13-5 or something, 1v1s. But I think that as a coach, you need to look who is going to be in the best form in the particular race in the World Championships. And yeah, it's very difficult to make that decision. And I'm grateful that I'm not the one making those decisions. So I can definitely understand that Bakker is a bit upset with that, but it was for her a difficult season. It wasn't the greatest of season, and I think for her it's I wouldn't say I wouldn't care about it, but I would take it a little bit lighter and take it as a motivation to build yourself even better in the next season and make sure that they cannot get around you.
Oh yeah, I mean, she said she somewhat understood it, but it's logical that as an athlete you are frustrated if you don't make the biggest race of the season. And as you say, Van Alphen over the course of the season has been better. The head-to-head after today is 11-5 in the advantage of Van Alphen. But in the beginning of the season, as you say, Manon Bakker had like the knee injury that she obtained in one of these German races. So it's not been ideal for her. She's been better now, but as you say again, it's such a tough choice to make. And it's only going to become increasingly tough next year when Van Anrooij is coming in. You need to hope that the World Cup winner, World Champion and European Champion are different riders, because if, say, Van Empel goes for the Grand Slam and wins all three, then Netherlands only has 8 spots, and good luck filling those, because Netherlands can easily bring over 8-9 riders that can top 10 worlds. So it's a difficult choice to make. I can understand the choice for Van Alphen, but I could have equally understood the choice for Manon Bakker. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And as you say, Bakker said she will take this as a motivational point and train harder for a better season next year. Then we've had it. Issam, thank you for talking about the World Cup in Besançon with me.
No worries, thank you for having me, and I think we start now with the countdown towards the Worlds, huh?
Yeah, we're going to be bringing some podcasts this week. We will be making a big preview episode, and we will hopefully be bringing some interviews as well with some riders this week. So stay tuned for that. Thanks everyone for listening, and goodbye.